I was born December the 28th, 1933, in Galston-on-Sea. My family originally came from Strood. My father was a captain on a merchant ship with Everards, and they had a lot of business going on the East Coast, so we moved down to Galston, where I was born. My family was my mother, who was Irish. She was born in Chappaqua, Waterford. Her name was Nora O'Flynn, and I had 3 elder brothers. Arthur was 19, Bert was 18, and Harold was 17. And then also I had 2 elder sisters. Doreen was 5 when I was born. Nora was 3, and then there was me, so the 6 of us. I can remember playing on the beach in the summer and sitting outside a pub on the waterfront with a packet of crisps and lemonade. The landlord of the pub, he was my godfather, and he was the coxswain of the Galston lifeboat. But another thing I can remember about Galston, the winters were so cold. The wind came off of the North Sea, and I was there, obviously, until we were evacuated. We used to go to Yarmouth, and we would walk back over the Vauxhall Bridge. We walked everywhere those days. Another thing I can remember in Yarmouth, when the herring boats came in, and all the fishing girls would be on the quay with the herrings. I think I was evacuated, it must have been either the August or the September of 1940. We knew things were going to be different. My mother told us things were going to change. One thing I can remember before that, we used to gather around the radio, and I remember listening to Churchill's speeches.
We shall fight.
I can't remember which one, but I can remember we had to dial the radio in, and after one of them, my mother was in tears.
We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches.
The night, obviously it must have been the night before we evacuated, or the day before we evacuated, Mum took us out, and she bought us haversacks, and also she bought us barley sugars. And we thought, oh, this is good, but she wouldn't let us eat the barley sugars. The next morning, we were taken to Yarmouth Vauxhall, the main station, and we were with all the people in the school. And so you went into your own class, people with your own class, and we didn't know what was going on. We thought, oh, we're getting on a train. And of course, we got on the train. And then the door shut, and Mum and my gran, they were on the platform waving to us. And so that was it. But my sister, my eldest sister, Doreen, she was very good. She took care of me. But really looking back on it, it must have been horrendous, wasn't it? We got off the train in Worksop. I think it's outside Doncaster. And we had to stay with our class, the class we were in at school. So they put us in a crocodile, 2 by 2. As I had my 2 sisters, they let my 2 sisters walk in front of me. We went down this, must have been a road, a street, whatever, and the people were saying, you go in there, you go in there. Well, of course, my 2 sisters in front of me, they said, you go in there. And so they went into that house. Myself and my best friend, her name was Brenda Bacon, we were next to each other. Oh, what's happening? And they sent us into the next house. He was a miner, and his wife, they didn't have any children, so they took us in. My mother said they ruined us with kindness. In fact, she said it took a long time for us to get back into what we had to do. They were lovely. They were very, very kind. I can remember the meals. The meals were sometimes different. And Sunday dinner, they always served the Yorkshire pudding first with gravy on it. And later, my mother said it's because they would fill you up with pudding so you didn't have to eat so much meat. But we weren't there all that long because what happened was, I remember we went to bed, Brenda Bacon and I, we shared the same bed. And one morning, woke up, and Brenda's mother was there. And Brenda's mother decided that she was going to take her back. She didn't want to be without her. And she did. She actually took her. And, of course, then I was by myself there, spoiled even more than I had been before. Then, also, one morning, woke up and my mother was there. She'd come to take us back, but we weren't going to go back to Norfolk. My father, he knew somebody, he said we were going down to Devon. Dad wasn't there, but Mum took us. We got on the train and we went down to Exmouth. My mother, she's very Irish, very superstitious. She just didn't like the place. And I think we lived there for just about a month. But then Mother said she wanted to go back to Norwich. We all went back together to Norwich. My eldest brother, Arthur, he was served an apprenticeship at Short's factory, the aircraft factory on Rochester. Bert and Harold were both at sea. They both were in the Merchant Navy. Got into Norwich. We found somewhere to live. Went into school. That was fine. But then, I think it was in 1942, the Germans, they started bombing Norwich, and that was the time was horrendous. I remember sometime when we were at school, we'd always have to know when the air raid siren went, the warning, and then there was the all clear. And when we were in school, if the air raid warning went, we had to form a crocodile. There were shelters under the ground that they built. Once we got there, we all had to clap our hands, stamp our feet and shout, obviously, so we couldn't hear the bombs coming down. My sister Nora, she developed spinal meningitis and she had to sleep indoors. Before then, we had been sleeping up in the shelter up in the back of the yard, and she had to sleep indoors, so we had to spend all the night, Dorian and I, when the bombs were coming down, under the stairs. And Mum made us put a pillow over our heads. Well, it was horrible, it was dark, but we survived. My mother was very strict, but she was a good mother, a really good mother. Well, she had to be mother and father to us, didn't she? Because my father was away nearly most of the time. We always knew when Dad was home, because his watch and chain was always on the sideboard. And when the watch and chain were on the sideboard, we knew Dad was safe. I've got great memories of VE Day.
Signed the Act of Unconditional Surrender.
We all walked up to the marketplace in Norwich, and all the people were singing and dancing, and obviously someone was drinking. Everyone went mad.
We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing. Today is Victory in Europe Day.
We walked home, and on the way home, the street lights were on. And the street lights hadn't been on for years. And to walk home in the light, just when it was all light, instead of having little torches, was something else. September 1945, big day. We went to London with my mum and dad, and my dad went to the palace and he received his MBE from the King. I didn't go in, but waited outside with my gran and my granddad, and after that we all celebrated with a lovely dinner in a hotel in London. Bert was mentioned in dispatches, mentioned for brave conduct, and it was published in the Gazette. Stephen has a copy of it, but it was signed by Winston Churchill. I used to go to the corner shop for my mum, and we had to take the ration books, and they would take the coupons out, And, you'd had so many coupons for this, so many coupons for that.
Mr. W.S. Morrison is here to explain. Now that you're receiving your ration books, he tells you what you should do now and what you may have to do if the need should come.
These little books may seem a bit complicated at first, but their purpose is quite simple.
If you didn't have the coupons, you couldn't buy the food. And I've always remembered there was clothes rationing, and there again, you had to have so many points in your book to be able to buy clothes. I got my school certificate, and then actually the school wanted me to stay on, but my mother said no, she's been 16, she's going out to work. I worked for the Norwich Union Friendly Society in the office, and I think it was about £1,000 a year. I worked for just over a year because I decided I wanted to be a nurse. And so I applied to some hospitals, and then I applied to Whipps Cross, and then I was accepted there as a student nurse. I was 17, that was 51, I think. So I would be 18 in the December. You had to do 3 months PTS, preliminary training school, before you went onto the ward. There was surgical wards, children's wards. I did geriatric nursing, which was very sad. And the sister, she was Sister Smith. She was rather masculine, if I can put it that way. One of my best friends there was Eva Bassender, and we'd go up to London. Oh, yeah, that was lovely to be able to, Of course, we'd get on the tube train, and away we went, just to go round and see all those shops. I love Selfridges. I only worked there 2.5 years because I met my husband, and then all plans changed. I met him at Leighton Baths. We had the nurses' Christmas dance there, just after I joined, actually. That was in 52, yes, yeah, because we got married in 54. He asked me to dance. He did the quickest quick step I'd ever been through.
Shall we dance? Shall we dance?
When we got married, at one time we were living with Tony's mum and dad, and I had Stephen, and also had Carol. We couldn't find anything we could afford in London. And so in the end, I went down to stay with my mum and dad. Just after the war, my gran had this house in Strood. She'd rented it for God knows how many years. And just after the war, it came up for sale, and my father bought it. And so he said, there's a house there in Strood. If you want it, you can rent it, or you can buy it from me, but you'll pay me rent so much every week. And so we moved down to Strood.